Picking a financial advisor is the most important decision many people will make during their retirement. Choosing right could lead you to a prosperous retirement where you're going on vacation, you have everything you want. Choosing wrong could lead you down a perilous path where you're paying more in fees than you're potentially even earning and can make your retirement situation even much more strained. What should you ask? What should you take into consideration when choosing a financial advisor? So there are a number of topics we are going to talk about, but choosing an advisor is very important. And so the number of things that we're going to talk about, number one is compensation. You should know how your advisor is getting compensated. There's really a number of different models. The old model, one that is still around today at some select firms, but is increasingly going away, is the brokerage model. The brokerage model means your advisor only gets paid when they sell you something effectively. You buy a mutual fund, they get a sales charge of up to 5.75%, and then you have a mutual fund that then sits in your account. You're paying an internal fee on that mutual fund while it's sitting in your account, but that fee doesn't go to your advisor. They got paid up front. If you want to switch out of that mutual fund, you sell it, you buy a new mutual fund, now they get paid again. This model is pretty much outdated. There are a select few firms that still operate on this model, but it is outdated because the SEC doesn't really view this as in the best interest of clients, because the SEC wants, for instance, if an advisor truly believes, hey, let's rebalance this, sell some of this because this has grown so much, let's buy some more of this. They don't want that to be judged as a profit decision where an advisor is saying, oh, I can rebalance and then I get paid on that. So the problem with the brokerage model, which is the old model, is that created a conflict of interest where the advisor's interest, the broker's interest weren't necessarily the same as that of the client, which is why this next structure has become the predominant structure, which is the fee-based model. The fee-based model says you get charged a set percentage per year, and there's no trade fees, there's no transaction costs. Whenever you buy or sell, you're not getting charged. So the advisor does not have any ulterior motive to rebalance and to buy new stocks. If they're advising you, hey, we need to get out of this bucket of stocks, let's go into this bucket, you know it's in your best interest because they're not making any extra money off of that. Their fee is effectively not an investment fee, it is an advisory fee. What you are paying them, you're just paying them for advice. They are not making any commissions off of the actual investments, the actual mutual funds or stocks that they are offering. This has become the predominant form because the SEC likes it and it's in everybody's best interest, because under this structure, when you make money as a client, the advisor makes more money. If your stocks go up, the advisor makes more. Your stocks go down, the advisor makes less money. So the advisor's best interest is to help make you more money because then they make more money. The third type, which is not as popular, but it's growing a little bit, is the fee only, or sometimes known as fee for service model. This is very, very niche. Under this model, the advisor doesn't manage your investments necessarily. They just charge you a set annual dollar fee purely for advice. So they're not managing your investments. Your fee that you're paying isn't based on the amount of investments you have. They are just charging you either a planning fee or a set dollar fee every year. This model, again, it's still very small. Select few people are doing this, but it's not as popular right now. But those are the three models. And those are the things to really keep in mind when choosing your advisor who you may want to work with. On that note, we talked about doing what's in your best interest. You want to work with an advisor who openly attempts to maintain the fiduciary duty. Now, fiduciary duty, it can be a little vague because it's not necessarily binding or official, but basically what this means is someone who is a fiduciary has the legal obligation to act in the best interests of their clients. What we talked about before, the pricing model, that actually plays into that. Because if you have someone who says they're a fiduciary, says they're legally obligated to act in your best interest, and then they also choose a pricing model, which you can clearly see that there's no conflict of interest. When they make more money, you make more money, and vice versa. That kind of makes sense there. Where this gets a little problematic is when someone claims to be a fiduciary, but then they're on the broker model where they only make money when they sell you something. That's where a problem comes in, because how they're paid does not align with what they are claiming. So the fiduciary duty is really an extension of that, but it's really the legal obligation to act in your best interests. And where this comes in is there used to be this debate between best interest versus suitability. Suitability just meant, hey, I chose an investment that is suitable for them. It's an all right investment for them. Best interest means you chose the best possible investment for that client, or the best possible solution for that client. See how there's a little bit of a difference there? It can be subtle, but it is a really big difference. That's where it's important to make sure whoever you're working with aims to maintain the fiduciary duty, because they're not just doing, oh, this is suitable for you, this is all right. No, this is the best possible solution for you. The other aspect are credentials, and credentials are very important, whether that is CFP, enrolled agent, CIMA, the list goes on and on, but they add to usually an advisor's field of expertise. So I say myself, I am an enrolled agent. That is a designation that comes from the IRS. That is relevant because a lot of what I focus on is tax planning with my clients. So if you want to work with an advisor who you'd want to actually help you with taxes, it's pretty important that they're an enrolled agent then, because that means they studied the tax code, passed those tests with the IRS, and the Internal Revenue Service and the Department of the Treasury confer that designation on them directly. So someone who's working with taxes probably should be an EA, because that says they're an expert in that field of expertise. Now on to some of the exact questions you should be asking before you hire an advisor. So obviously number one is, how long have you been doing this? But there are people who have been doing this for 30 years who don't know what they're doing, and there are people who have been doing this for 3 years who are great at what they are doing. One of the important questions that I would personally ask is, what does your average client, your ideal client look like? And what types of clients do you work with the most? Now, when I say that, I don't really mean net worth. What I mean is this: who is your average client? Okay, you tend to really work with nurses a lot. Okay, I'm a nurse. 50% of your clients are nurses. All right, you're probably going to understand the types of things we go through. You probably even have some clients who are employees at the same place of work I go in. You probably know my employer plan. Whereas if I work with professional athletes and then I have someone come in and they're like, oh, I'm a nurse. Yeah, I can obviously work with them, but that's not really my focus. And why that's important is this: like, when you work with a certain industry, you tend to really have a good idea of what they're going through, but the types of plans. Like, we do have a lot of clients who are nurses. And so I can say myself, some of the hospital plans some of them are nationwide. I have someone comes in, says they work at a specific hospital. Before we even talk much about their account, I know the exact details of their plan. I know where it's held. I know the weird quirks of it. I know what the rules are. That stuff is very important. You also are going to know, okay, this type of employer tends to have a pension. Here are the rules for the pension. That actually is really important, of just understanding, because any advisor, even any advisor that holds himself out as a generalist, you're still going to have, just by happenstance, without even really trying, you're going to have a general niche of clients that you draw from. Someone may not even try to have that, but they could have a ton of doctors or a ton of nurses or a ton of federal government workers. And it just over time accumulates. And then you look, wow, 50% of my clients work for the federal government. That's actually a pretty big deal, because you're going to know exactly what those workers go through, but you're going to know everything about those plans. Those are really the key aspects of choosing an advisor. And the other aspect is this: I'd add this last question. Let's say you're initially meeting with an advisor, right? You're going through the appointment process. Then you come on and then you're meeting with someone else. They just pass you off right away. That's a question that I would ask, because that happens a lot. You initially meet with an advisor And then it turns out they're not actually really the advisor. They're essentially the onboarding advisor. And then once you come on as a client, you never talk to them again, even though you liked them, which is why you came on. And so something I would ask is, if I come on, am I going to get passed off? Am I going to just be handed off to another advisor? Am I going to still work with you? How is this whole deal going to operate? And they'll either say, oh, no, you're going to work with me, which is good. They're going to say, oh, usually they're never going to just say, oh, I'm going to pass you off. If they plan on passing you off, they'll usually say something along the lines of, well, this is a team approach and I'm a part of the team, but you're going to also have the opportunity to work with other members of my team. That is another way of saying, yes, you're going to get passed off. You're probably never going to see me again, which is not necessarily a bad thing unless you really like that advisor and that's who you want to work with. Because a lot of clients come into the office from either an in-person seminar or an online webinar or video. And a lot of the times you sat through that seminar and you're like, wow, this person is really smart. I like this person a lot. I'm going to go meet with them. Because usually that onboarding advisor is the one who does the seminars. So you've gone to that event, you're in the, wow, I like this person. And then all of a sudden you're getting passed off and you're like, wait, the whole reason I came on was because I like this advisor and now I'm never going to see them again. So those are the questions that I would personally ask if I was meeting with an advisor, but that's going to do it for the video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them below. I'd like to see any questions you might have. And then if you would like a complimentary consultation, click that link below. Also, if you like this video, of course, make sure to subscribe. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.